Before I get started, I want to say that this video assumes that you're already familiar with the Watts case. This is not just another video summarizing the events that took place. This is an attempt to take some of the facts of the case and speculate why it happened the way that it did. In August 2018, tragedy struck the Watts family in Frederick, Colorado. A seemingly loving father, Chris Watts, murdered his two daughters, Bella and Celeste, his pregnant wife, Shanann, and unborn son, Nico. After returning home from a trip to Arizona at 1:48 a.m., Shanann unknowingly opened her front door for the last time. Within days, Chris was arrested after a series of events, including his wife's best friend alerting authorities sooner than he had anticipated, and she even went to check if Shanann had went to her scheduled doctor's appointment after noticing her car was still in the garage and a neighbor's surveillance camera all helped speed up the process, and an unprepared Chris Watts crumbled quickly, as nobody was buying the novel he was trying to write about his wife taking the kids on a play date and didn't tell him with who or where. Nobody knew this friend. All of her actual friends were accounted for, and none of them could reach her. After Shanann's neighbor and friend called the police for a wellness check, Chris took his time returning to the same house where he took the life of his wife just 12 or so hours ago. There is much debate about when he murdered his daughters. Before Shanann returned home from Arizona, as neighbors spotted Chris barbecuing earlier that day, but noted they didn't see the kids. And then there's the story of it happening at the same place they were later recovered. I personally think Bella woke up and saw what Chris had done to Shanann, which led to him making the decision to kill them too. Everyone loves to say Chris is a narcissist. The way they throw that word around is kind of laughable, because let's be real here. If anyone was a narcissist, it was Shanann. Everyone likes to say, "Oh, he's just a monster," and what he did certainly warrants that title. But there are a lot of other factors that led up to the murders. Not just one. Some even place all of the blame on Nicole Kessinger. And from this point on, I will refer to Nicole Kessinger as Nikki, and Nicole Atkinson, Nicole Utoff, will be referred to as Nicole. So back to Nikki. She played her part, sure. Maybe even a bigger part than the other contributing factors, but she is not the sole reason. And we could even say that had Chris never been introduced to Nikki, this may have never happened. So I'm not saying she's blameless here, but we will never know what would have happened if Nikki was never in Chris's life. Chris could have easily just chugged along on autopilot in his marriage to a woman he'd been growing to hate. How big of a role did the pregnancy play in the situation? Say the affair was going on, except Shanann isn't pregnant. There might be a different outcome there. We know that Chris's first and unsuccessful attempt at murder was on his unborn son, so it's clear the impending infant weighed heavy on Chris. Had he succeeded in causing a miscarriage, perhaps Shanann, Bella, and Cece would still be here. Throughout the tons of videos Shanann posted, who do we actually see playing with the kids? Chris. Shanann is too busy on Facebook Live saying, "Say hi, Bella. Say hi, Bella. Say hi, guys. Don't mind me. The little monsters have made my house a mess." Meanwhile, there's two toys on the floor. Even in the video where Bella and Cece are supposed to help Shanann bake cookies, she doesn't even let them help. I'm not saying this to put down on Shan. I'm saying this because it is absolutely clear in the videos that Chris loved his kids. Compare his interactions with the kids to videos where he is clearly faking interest in the mini pyramid scheme live streams that Shanann forced him to do. The most puzzling thing about this case to me is Chris Watts himself. He's your average guy, but not your average killer. Various occurrences turned him into the monster that he became. Now let's talk about his 5-week vacation. He had 5 weeks away from Shanann and the kids. This newfound freedom is another factor in this case that I feel is usually overlooked. People always talk about the affair, but don't talk about how, with or without the affair, there was still going to be a 5-week break where the two were growing apart. And was still going to happen. 5 weeks where Chris had the run of the house. He felt like he could finally do whatever he wanted. And it's speculated that the trip was to save money as well as an attempt to finesse new clients for a pyramid scheme. And it's rumored that the trip was a trial separation, but I don't believe that was the case. Shanann was clear about how she couldn't do 3 kids alone. Yet she was grouchy in text messages to her friends about Chris. But the truth is, Shanann wasn't going anywhere. And Chris, well, he knew this too. He told her they weren't compatible anymore, and eventually caved in because she was relentless and wouldn't let it go. If there was one word Shanann despised, it was the word no. Chris knows she doesn't take a no for an answer. She grew angry and sad that Chris was pretty much ignoring her. Throughout the 5-week trip, anger was building up, and it turned into what has been dubbed as Nutgate. Shanann goes into rage mode over ice cream and is kicked out of Chris's mother's house, with Bella reportedly hiding behind a curtain during the screaming match. So now there's a dagger, as Shanann put it, between them and Chris's parents. Chris's dad specifically, and Shanann just won't let it go. A string of posts on Facebook concerning the ice cream incident led to her being blocked by Chris's parents on Facebook, and rightfully so. I'd have blocked her too. Weeks go by, and the situation is still a main focus for her. Eventually, Chris finally met up with his family in North Carolina for the 6th week of the trip. But he wasn't the Chris she knew from 5 weeks ago. This new Chris was more concerned on reading the back of labels of green beans than he was on Shanann, and she noticed it. She thought about him having an affair, but always shrugged it off because, in her own words, he had no game. And also quoted as saying via text message, "Only thing I can think of, even though he doesn't have it in him, is another girl." But Chris, he had game. And another girl. The new fling in his life, the dagger that Shanann put between Chris and his father, were all starting to brew together, with Chris sitting in silence, likely filled with rage. They were both so angry. But there was no communication. Shanann tried her hardest, but Chris wasn't interested. By this point, he was checked out. She knew he was, and she was trying desperately to hook him back in. But none of her tactics were going to work this time. Now let's talk about the finances, because the financial aspect of this case also plays a major role, from the suspicious credit card charges at the restaurant with Nikki that set Shanann off, to the anger Shanann displayed when Chris paid to park at the airport, saying that's $130 we can't spend at the beach. So Chris is already being badgered about this before he even gets to North Carolina, and likely landed there in a bad mood. It is clear how tight money was for them, but that didn't stop Shanann from spending money on boxes of Thrive and other pyramid scheme products she would have failed to sell to anyone. But Chris, he's paraded for such amounts of money that shouldn't even be an issue if spent. The kids were set to return to a daycare at Primrose with a reported $500 a week price tag. She knows in her heart that she is losing Chris. She's pregnant, and she was obviously stressed and aware of their dire financial situation. She had an idea that involved moving another family into the house. What a disaster that would have been for everyone involved had it happened. Shanann would have punched her new roommate in the face by the second week. Now, I'm not here to call Shanann a saint or a monster. I'm not here to call Chris a saint or a monster. I'm here to dig deeper into this case than most seem to do. Most just go over the basics. Oh, a man was cheating on his wife and then murdered his family. Most have basic knowledge of this case, even if that. But few have spent months worth of hours studying this case since 2018. I've read all the text messages between Shanann and her friends, the text between Chris and Shanann. I've seen all the Facebook Live videos. I've seen nearly all that is available to see. And I had actually planned on bringing the channel back specifically for this case last summer, but decided not to. But a year later, and still deep into this case, I feel this is a story that needs to be told, but told differently than the usual way it's presented. People are quick to dismiss any positive words towards Chris, and quick to dismiss any negative words towards Shanann. I don't blame them honestly, but if you were to dig deeper, you might learn to dismiss actual things that need to be dismissed concerning this case. Like Nikki having a role in the murders? Come off it. Do you really think Chris was worth committing murder for? You meet a guy and a few months later you agree to help him kill his family? Not even Lorne Armstrong would do that for a woman. Or about the co-workers at Anadarko conspiring together. Get that nonsense out of here. Why is it that so many believe Nikki was in on it? They have Chris to hate. So why does Nikki seemingly get even more hate? People saying she deserves to be locked up because she had something to do with it are delusional. Chris was lying to her too about him and Shanann getting a divorce. She even told him to work it out with her. Now, whether she actually meant it or not is irrelevant because Chris was already all in. His mind was made up. But back to the pregnancy. I said earlier that Chris made his first attempt at murder by attempting to cause a miscarriage, but failed. Is the baby on the way the actual root of the whole crime? Now, it's rumored that Nikki never knew Shanann was pregnant and didn't find out until after Chris was arrested. But we know for a fact she looked up Shanann on Facebook. So it's not a stretch to say that she probably saw her post something baby-related, or maybe even saw something baby-related during her brief visit to the Watts home. Also rumored that Chris told Nikki the baby wasn't his if she did confront him about it. Chris says in text to Shanann that he doesn't want another baby. He is happy with Bella and Cece. Even Shanann later admits to not wanting the baby anymore, but not because she didn't want it, but because of the situation it would potentially be brought into. Also stating she couldn't handle 3 kids alone. The pregnancy caused a lot of issues here. How many issues would be eliminated if Shanann simply wasn't pregnant? Perhaps the entire crime. Financially, the baby was an issue. Romantically with Shanann, the baby was an issue, as it was not going to fix their marriage. Romantically with Nikki, the pregnancy was an issue. We could sit here all day playing what if this, what if that, but what I hope you get out of this video is that there were so many things going on that added up to create this tragedy. People say, just get a divorce, but look at it from Chris's perspective. He's got a girl on the side, a pregnant wife, a wife he hates. But still, no matter how bad it may have gotten, it was still a better option than the decision Chris made. So stop placing all the blame on Nikki. She deserves some blame, but not all of it. The pregnancy, their financial situation, the Nutgate incident, the 5 weeks Shanann and Chris spent apart, all of these things and probably more that we don't even know led up to a guy who nobody had a bad thing to say about wiping out his entire family. Everyone likes to stick to the headline of the case. He killed his wife and kids, and they dig no deeper than that. Yes, he's a monster for what he did, but he didn't do what he did because he's a monster. He did what he did because he became a monster. There were tons of factors that led to the events that occurred on August 13th, 2018, but so many people choose to leave it out just so they can paint their own narratives. Well, I'm painting my perspective on the situation, on the case. An often asked question is, why didn't he just get a divorce? Shanann is not the type of woman you want to be your ex-wife. How ironic that a guy telling us how to save a marriage didn't want to save his so much that he committed murder just to be done with it. I'm not an expert on anything. This is just my thoughts and perspective on the Chris Watts and Shanann Watts case. This is a new series I'm doing called CrimeCity. I hope you enjoyed the first episode. This is also the first scripted content ever produced for the channel, and I plan to dig into other cases throughout the season. Let me know what you think of the Watts case in the comments. This your boy Atlantic City, and I'll catch you next time on Crime City.